Thank you for listening to the Radio Maria podcast on the world family of Radio Maria stations.
Thank you so much for listening to the Radio Maria podcasts. It's thanks to listeners like you who donate that enable us to continue delivering quality content to listeners around the world. If you'd like to contribute and help us keep spreading the message of Our Lady's Son, please consider making a donation. You can reach us at 888-40-80201 or simply visit our donations tab on our website at radiomaria.us. Your generosity truly makes a difference.
Hey friends, I'm Jennie Guinn, and this is Catholic Moms in the Middle. So if you joined me for my last show, you know that the topic was death. Not in a morbid way, but in a way that just makes you look at life through the lens of, am I living my life ready for what comes next, for eternity? And I want to continue with that today, but in a more exciting way. I want to talk about birthdays. So as I am sitting here recording this show, I am celebrating my 55th birthday. I'm recording it on the morning of my 55th birthday. And this birthday hits a little different. It's a little more personal. And I don't know how you feel about birthdays, but if I'm being honest, they can bring up a lot of emotions. Sometimes we celebrate them, but it seems like as we get further and further into midlife, there is this tendency to dread birthdays because I believe sometimes they quietly remind us of all the things that didn't turn out the way we thought they would. I think of my 3-year-old granddaughter. Her birthday is in May. She's been talking about her birthday since Christmas and what kind of birthday she's going to have. It changes all the time. Every time I see her, we talk about her birthday, and she's changed the theme and what she wants to do. Even when I was in the classroom teaching, birthdays were a big deal to kindergartners and first graders. They started planning what they were going to do, what they were going to have, and who was going to celebrate with them. And as adults, sometimes we lose that magic and that joy in birthdays. If you're in the middle, like me, birthdays can sometimes feel a little tender. Because here's the truth. At this point in our lives, we've lived enough to know that life has ups and downs. There are joys and there are struggles. And honestly, life doesn't always go according to plan. No matter how much we try, no matter how much we pray, life is full of forks in the road, and we have to make a decision which way to go. Sometimes those forks are created by our own choices, our own actions, and sometimes it's because of the circumstances in our life, things that happen, people change, jobs change, whatever it is. Life doesn't always go according to our plans. But God always has a bigger plan, right, friend? In midlife, we've experienced joy, yes, but we've also experienced loss, disappointment, unexpected turns, and broken dreams. And I'm going to be really honest here and transparent. I recently had a friend tell me that she didn't understand how I could be so vulnerable. You know, I share things that happen in my life, and I do that because I think our vulnerability connects us. I think being vulnerable and allowing others to see your pain, your suffering, your heartache allows you to connect with other people and allows you to help others walk through that same pain and vulnerability. If we always pretend like everything is okay and life is great, especially life that like we see it in social media on Instagram, the filtered, polished life, we all know that that's not real. And when we pretend that everything's okay, it separates us from one another. But when we're vulnerable, when we talk about our disappointments and our heartaches, not in a negative way, not in a demeaning way, but in a way that other people can connect, then we can help one another carry our struggles. And so for me, the past couple of years have been some of the most painful but transformative years of my life. So this birthday feels a little different for me. This year, I'm not just celebrating another year of life. I'm celebrating something deeper. I'm celebrating who I am becoming. And I want to talk about that word today, becoming. I think so many times in our culture and our lives, we want to hurry up and arrive, right? When we plug something into Google Maps or Waze, we want to put like where we currently are, our destination, and we want to get there as fast as we can. But in life, as we travel through life, as we become, it's not how do we get there the fastest, because I think life is, we're always becoming, we're always evolving. God's calling us deeper and deeper into that person He created us to be. And when we hear the word becoming, sometimes it can be a little intimidating. I want you and I to think about it in a way that sounds beautiful. But what does it actually mean? Here's the truth. Becoming is not reinventing yourself overnight or in a month or even a year. It's not finally getting everything right. It's not perfectionism. It's not arriving at some perfect version of yourself. Becoming is who you are on the other side of what you didn't choose. We know in midlife, like I said before, there are so many situations in our life that we did not choose, did not want, but yet and so becoming happens in that transition period. When you face those disappointments, the heartbreak, the confusion, those moments that literally brought you to your knees in prayer, those are the moments as you walked through them. Those are the becoming moments. That's how you become the person that God's calling you to be. And honestly, becoming is formed through suffering. Who you're becoming goes hand in hand with the suffering, the trials, and the difficulties. Becoming is clarified through the losses that you experience, through the grief that you walk. And it's strengthened through your surrender. All of those go hand in hand. The suffering, the loss, the surrender, the heartbreak, the setbacks. But here's what I've learned. No one sets out to become. It usually begins with something breaking, right? It usually begins when we reach that fork in the road and our path goes in a different direction than what we ever expected and what we wanted. It usually begins with a broken relationship. Maybe it's a marriage coming to an end, a broken dream. It's a lost sense of identity, like who you thought you were, but you aren't anymore. Your identity is in question. You've lost your footing. And it usually begins with losing that life that you thought you'd have, that path that you thought you were on. And friend, maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you can listen to this and there was some sort of breaking in your life that set your life on a different path. Maybe you're in a place where things didn't turn out the way you'd hoped. And now you're asking, what now? I've asked that question so many times over the past few years. What now, Lord? Like, Lord, I thought I was going in this direction, but what now? Instead of asking now what, you could look through it in a different lens and ask a different question. The question could be, what if? What if this is not the end of your story? So many times that heartbreak, that loss, it is an ending and it feels like it is the end of your story. But what if it's not the end of your story, but the beginning of your becoming? Because the very thing that feels like it's unraveling your life may actually be what God is using to reshape it. I want you to hear that again. The very thing that feels like it's unraveling in your life may actually be what God is using to reshape it. I have a strong devotion to the Blessed Mother, and one of images of the Blessed Mother that I'll hold near and dear to my heart is Our Lady Undoer of Knots. I have her on my dresser in my bedroom. I've been praying a lot to Mary Undoer of Knots, asking her to unravel, to undo the knots in my life connected to my marriage, divorce, the brokenness that I feel, forgiveness, grief. There are so many knots, and the image actually was created when a couple were praying for their marriage to be healed, and through their prayer and surrender, the Lord was able to unravel the knots, and their marriage was saved and strengthened. We all have knots in our lives that need to be unraveled. That unraveling may actually be what God is using to reshape you, to reshape your identity, your calling, your purpose in this season of life. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you again here, friends. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean you just move on, right? There's a lot of muck and mud that you have to walk through in the becoming, because midlife can hold two things at the same time. And this is a lesson that I've learned. In life, you can hold two things. You can hold joy and grief. You can have joy for what your life contains now, all of the blessings, but you can have grief for what was and what you thought your life would be like. Holding two things in at one time can allow you to become that person, to grow into what is being formed inside your heart and your soul. It doesn't have to be a hurried process. You can take your time. You don't have to pretend that the pain didn't happen. You don't have to go from grief to joy. It can bounce back and forth. But you also don't have to stay stuck there. You don't have to stay stuck in the hurt and the trial and the difficulty. It's being able to look up and allow God to write that next chapter of your life. So in that next chapter, that is where we can meet God. He will meet us in it, and slowly, gently, He will begin to lead you and I forward. That is why birthdays in midlife can feel so emotional, because they bring all of these things to the surface. They can make us look back and ask, is this where I thought I would be at this point in my life? Have I missed something? Why didn't things turn out the way that I had hoped or prayed for? And my friend, those are real questions. Those are the questions, if you're anything like me, that wake you up in the middle of the night. But here's what I'm learning. We are not meant to look back at our lives with shame, with judgment. We are invited to look back with grace. And that is one of those words that we hear all the time. But what does it actually mean to look back with grace? Looking back with grace means telling the truth about your past, about looking at all of the things, laying it all out, looking at the facts of what happened, looking at the pain, looking at the struggles, but looking at the ways that you overcame them, looking at the ways you walked through whatever life threw at you, looking at the joys, the celebrations, without condemning yourself in it. I meet with women in retreats and in my transformation coaching, and women are the worst about looking through the lens of judgment, criticism, and shame. So I don't want you to do that. It's not even pretending that everything was good. It's not ignoring what was painful. It's not rewriting your story. It's not flipping the script or the narrative to make it look like what you think it should be. The facts are the facts. It's choosing to see your life through a different lens, through God's presence, through his abundant mercy and through his promised redemption. Because if we're honest, most of us don't naturally look back with grace. It's that criticism, and it's harsh criticism, judgment. You might say things to yourself like, I should have known better. Why did I stay so long? I wasted so many years. If I had just done things differently, if I had said something differently, if I had acted different, then things would have turned out differently. And that voice is heavy. It's condemning. And that's what can keep you stuck. But grace invites you to shift the way that you see things. Instead of saying, I failed, I'm a failure, you begin to say, I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. Instead of saying, I wasted so many years, whether it was on a relationship, a career, a ministry, you can begin to say, God was still at work, even in the seasons that I didn't understand and those seasons that didn't make sense. Instead of saying, I should have seen it, I should have stopped this from happening, I should have, done something different. Grace allows you to say, I can see things more clearly now, and that's growth. Here's the truth, friend. Grace does not erase your past. It doesn't take away the choices that you made, the circumstances. It doesn't take away that fork in the road, but it changes how you relate to it, and it changes how you move forward. And let's look at it from a faith perspective. Grace reminds us that God never left us. Not in the confusion, not in the pain and suffering, not even in the choices that you and I would make differently today. So instead of asking, what is wrong with me? That's another one of those questions I've asked over and over again over the past few years. But I've started to ask myself, where was God with me in all of it? In those moments of darkness, in the struggle, in the pain, in the broken promises, the broken relationships, the path that veered off in a direction you never wanted. Where was God with me in all of it? And if you look back, if you take it to him in prayer, very often he will shine a light on where he was. Maybe it was going deeper in scripture. Maybe it was the love and support of family. It was the encouragement of friends, those people who hold you up during those times. You will see that he was carrying you even when it didn't feel like it. Where he was protecting you even when it didn't make sense. And where he was working even in the moments that felt broken and shattered. And I believe this is especially important in midlife because many of us are carrying questions like, was it my fault? Why didn't I change things sooner? How did I miss all of this? And looking back with grace allows you to say, I may not have had all the clarity then, but I'm not going to punish myself for what I couldn't see. Sometimes it takes getting past a situation and looking back honestly, but grace makes room for two truths at one time. That was painful, but God was present. That didn't turn out the way I hoped or prayed for, but God is still redeeming it. I would do things completely different now, but I am not defined by those choices. Because you cannot fully step into who you're becoming if you're still condemning who you used to be, if you're still criticizing the choices that you made, if you're still holding on to the wrongs. Grace is the bridge between your past and to the woman you're becoming. And that brings me to something that's been on my heart as I approach this birthday. I think often of the story of Esther. You've probably heard, created for such a time as this. Let's think about Esther for a second. She didn't choose her circumstances. She didn't plan her path, and yet the Lord placed her exactly where she was meant to be for a reason, a very specific reason. And I think sometimes in midlife, we feel like we've missed our moment, like it's too late. Or I hear women say often their best years are behind them. But what if right now, exactly where you are, wherever you're standing, if you're at the fork in the road, if you've moved past it on your journey, what if this is your moment? What if everything you've walked through has been preparing you for right now? At 55, I am beginning to believe this more than ever. I'm not behind. I'm not too late. I'm not disqualified because my life didn't go as I planned. I am here for a time such as this, and so are you. Another woman in Scripture that I think about quite often is Ruth. Ruth did not step into her new life without a clear plan. If you know anything about Ruth, and if you know Ruth's story, there were lots of losses. She lost her husband. She lost her sense of directions. She lost the path that she thought she was on. And she approached that fork in the road with obedience. She stepped into that new path with obedience. She left what was familiar and she walked into uncertainty. She chose faithfulness one step at a time. She didn't know how her story would unfold. She didn't know that God was weaving her into something far greater than she could see. She just simply said yes and trusted in the Lord. She was obedient. She worked. She gleaned in the field. She said yes to staying, yes to serving, yes to trusting God, even when the future felt unclear. When she was doing work that she never imagined doing, she trusted. Instead of putting her head down and complaining and grumbling, she continued to look at the Lord and give him praise and thanksgiving for everything she could glean in the field. She was taking what was left over from the harvesters and gleaning what she could take from it. Because it's not always bold and visible like Esther. Sometimes it's quiet and faithful like Ruth. It's showing up, trusting God, taking the next step without needing the whole plan. And that comes through obedience. And I'm going to be honest with you here, friends. That's hard for me. I like to see the big picture. I like to know the path ahead. But sometimes God only shines light on the very next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. But when God writes a story, it's always far more beautiful than you and I could ever imagine. So instead of dreading midlife birthdays, what if we see them as a sacred invitation to pause, to reflect, to acknowledge both what was hard, but also to acknowledge what God is still doing? I want to offer you 3 simple ways to celebrate your birthday in midlife in a way that honors both the pain, but the joy and the purpose in your life. Number 1, celebrate with sacred reflection, not self-criticism. Create space for reflection. Create that space with the Lord and ask Him, where were you with me this past year? Let Him show you the moments that He carried you, the ways He protected you, and the growth that maybe you don't even recognize. How He was caring for you. He was strengthening you to become the person that He's called you to be. It's all about the becoming. Number 2, honor what was hard. Honor what was hard in your life without letting it define you. Give yourself permission to name the disappointments, to name the heartbreak, to be aware of the things that didn't turn out the way you'd hoped for. It doesn't mean that they're okay. It doesn't mean that You would go back and even choose them again, but bring it to God honestly. Lord, this was not what I expected. I've shared before that my prayer over the past few years has been, Jesus, I don't understand, but I trust in you. Jesus, I don't understand, but I trust in you. Because healing doesn't come when you pretend that everything's okay. It comes from bringing what hurts into the light. You're not defined by the brokenness. You are being shaped by what God is redeeming. Number 3, another way that you can celebrate birthdays in midlife is choosing one hope-filled step forward. Not a complete overhaul, right? You're not going to change 50 things at one time. Just one step. Maybe it's setting a boundary to establish what you will accept and what you won't accept in your life. Maybe it's saying yes to something God is stirring in your heart, a desire, a ministry, a way to serve. Maybe it's a hobby or something you've always wanted to try. Because again, my friend, becoming doesn't happen all at once. It's a process, and it begins with one faithful step at a time. No matter which birthday you're celebrating, if it's 35, 45, 55, 65, 95, as long as you have breath, God still has a purpose for your life. There are still people to love, still lives to touch. There's still healing to receive, but also to give. Like I said earlier, our healing allows other people to walk through their healing. So you are not starting over. You are being refined. You are becoming. So this year, as I turn 55, I'm choosing to celebrate differently. I'm choosing gratitude, even for those hard things. Now, I don't think I will ever say, I'm grateful I got a divorce, because I don't think I would ever be grateful for that. But what I can be grateful for is how my relationship with the Lord grew deeper in those dark moments through the trials and the suffering. And gratitude for choosing to believe that God is still writing something beautiful in my life, that the story is not over, that it's a new chapter, and I am giving God the pen so he can be the author. And I want to invite you to do the same. Wherever you are, whatever your story looks like right now, whichever chapter you are in, whatever you're carrying, your life is not over. It's unfolding. Our Lady, Undoer of Knots, can help you begin to unravel it. You are not too late. You are right on time for a time such as this. Celebrate who you are becoming. Celebrate the strength, the healing, the faith, the purpose that is growing within you. Because, my friend, that is something truly worth celebrating. All right, until we meet again next time, go out and magnify Christ in your little corner of the world. God bless.
Thank you so much for listening to the Radio Maria podcasts. It's thanks to listeners like you who donate that enable us to continue delivering quality content to listeners around the world. If you'd like to contribute and help us keep spreading the message of Our Lady's Son, please consider making a donation. You can reach us at 888-408-0201 or simply visit our donations tab on our website at radiomaria.us. Your generosity truly makes a difference. This has been a Radio Maria production.